Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amanda Edwards. It is my honour to be your MC for today's ceremonies. Thank you for attending the 44th Battalion Memorial Service. This will be the 9th hour of service, and there are 5 more to go throughout the day. I would like to start by recognising the special guests and the support we have present for today's ceremony. The Honourable Minister, Paul Papalia, CSE, MLA, Bob Hawke College, the Royal Australian Band, West Australia, Piper Darren Best, Dr. Peter Mack, and the West Australian Great War Living History Association. I'd like to now ask everyone to stand for the mounting of the catafalque party. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd now like to call upon the Director of the 44th Battalion, Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial, Mr. Luca Muir-Anderson, to explain the ceremony.
Hello, my name is Luca Muir-Anderson. I'm the founder and director of the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial and the great-grandson of John McKeon, who served in that unit. I'm also a trooper in the Australian Army Reserves. I created the 44th Battalion Memorial in March of this year because I saw a real lack of recognition for this particular unit. It was one of 5 battalions raised in Western Australia during the Great War. However, it is the only one to no longer exist, having been disbanded in 1960. As such, it has started to become forgotten over the years. They do not have their own physical cenotaph, and until now they did not have their banner marched on Anzac Day. The stories of the thousands of men who served with the battalion and the 482 who gave the supreme sacrifice in the defence of our country are at real risk of fading away. This is the first memorial service dedicated solely to the 44th Battalion in many years, as the old association ceased to exist long ago. There will be 15 ceremonies today, going from dawn until dusk, each one representing a different battle and having different songs, poems and stories. The names of all the soldiers on the 44th Battalion Honour Roll will be read out throughout the day. There is an honour guard, band and speakers present throughout the whole day, and the main ceremony took place at 11 a.m, where His Excellency the Governor of Western Australia, Chris Dawson AC APM, reviewed the memorial. Our memorial aims to keep the individual stories of the soldiers alive. We do this through our interactive website, which details how many days a specific soldier was at the front line, what awards they earned, what battles they fought in, when they were sick, what they did before the war, who their family were, and etc. This is quite a demanding project, as even if we complete one soldier a day, it will take over 6 years to complete. Luckily, many members of the community donate their time to complete the biographies of these soldiers. The memorial also conducts ceremonies for individual soldiers, the goal being to individually commemorate every soldier in the battalion. We have done 12 of those smaller ceremonies in the suburbs of Perth, the towns of the Wheat Belt, and with the Swedish Embassy in Canberra, commemorating nearly 70 individual soldiers so far. We also had Christchurch Grammar School create a faithful copy of the 44th Battalion banner, which was signed by the Mayor of Claremont, mimicking the raising ceremony of the 44th Battalion in 1916, 108 years ago. This banner was then marched through St George's Terrace on Anzac Day this year. I thank you all for attending and hope that you find this a meaningful service.
Thank you. I'll now read the story of the 44th Battalion Australian Imperial Force. Raised in Claremont in January 1916, it was the last battalion to be raised in Western Australia during the war. It originally left Western Australia with 1,000 men under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Mansbridge on the 6th of June 1916 and arrived in England the following month to continue their training. They nicknamed themselves Old Bill's 1,000. Another 1,500 men would join the 44th Battalion as reinforcements over the following 18 months. The 44th Battalion, AIF, arrived in France in late November 1916, and the following month was sent to the front line of the Armentières sector. Over a period of 3 months, the battalion suffered nearly 70 killed from constant attritional warfare. From May to August 1917, the 44th Battalion fought brutal engagements at Messines and suffered nearly 130 killed in the deadliest overall engagement for the unit. Lieutenant Colonel James Clark took over the command of the unit after the battle and would remain in command until the end of the war. The deadliest month of their entire service came in October 1917. Shortly after the Battle of Messines, when they were committed to the hellish fighting at Passchendaele and Broadside. In the span of less than 3 weeks, the battalion suffered over 90 killed and 750 wounded or sick, a casualty rate of 84%. After months of recovering, the 44th Battalion was desperately committed to slow down the advance of the German spring offensive from March to May 1918, suffering nearly 60 killed, however successfully halting the enemy advance in one of the most chaotic operations of the war, often not knowing where the front line was. On the 4th of July 1918, the West Australians fought alongside the Americans in one of their first engagements, the Battle of Hamel, suffering 30 killed in a single day. The month of August 1918 saw the battalion fight and win in 2 decisive battles, the Battle of Amiens and the Second Battle of the Somme. From this point onwards, the Imperial German Army was in constant retreat until the end of the war 100 days later. The battalion suffered only 25 killed during these battles, but seized vast amounts of territory and took many prisoners. The final operation of the war for the 44th Battalion was to cross St Quentin Canal, take Mount St Quentin and breach the heavily defended Hindenburg Line. This occurred on the 29th of September 1918. Of all the 44th Battalion's objectives were seized on the first day, though at a cost of 30 killed. For the remainder of the war, the 44th Battalion was now down to just company strength, as reinforcements had ceased arriving for half a year. Only 80 men were capable of fighting. As such, it conducted rear duties until armistice. During the war, the 44th Battalion AIF fought in nearly 24 engagements and received 16 battle honours. 2,642 men had served the battalion, of whom 1,793 had become casualties, with 482 paying the supreme sacrifice. This represents a casualty rate of 68% and a death rate of 18%. For their service, members of the battalion received 125 awards for gallantry in action, 19 awards for leadership in action, 5 awards for other acts of service, 11 foreign awards from the United States, Belgium and France, and 1 man was anointed into the Order of Chivalry. After the war, the 44th Battalion was reformed as a Citizens Military Forces unit, consisting of 3 companies in Perth and 1 company in Bunbury. In the 1920s, it received the King's Colours, regimental colours, a cap badge depicting a grass tree, a motto, an alliance with the Essex Regiment, and their regimental name became the West Australian Rifles. This unit, being on home defence duties during the Second World War, continued to serve until the 1960s. And its lineage continues on today as the Royal West Australian Regiment. I now call upon the Honourable Minister Paul Papalia, CSE, MLA, to tell the story of Private Eric George Kingston.
Private Eric George Kingston was born in the wheatbelt town of Toojay in 1901, son of George and Charlotte Kingston. Tragically, his mother died just 6 weeks after his birth. At the age of 7, his father remarried to Monica, and Eric would soon have 5 more siblings. With much disregard for his own personal safety, Eric George Kingston enlisted into the Australian Imperial Force on the 16th of April 1917 at the age of just 16, claiming to be 18. His father either helped him with his enlistment papers or his signature was forged by the young Kingston. Private Kingston was posted to the 8th Reinforcement, 44th Battalion, and embarked for overseas service on the 30th of June 1917. He arrived at the front line on the 29th of December 1917. The German army launched their spring offensive on the 24th of March 1918, a last-ditch attempt to win the war, and initially the British army fell back in disarray, and on the 28th of March 1918, the Germans reached the position of the 44th Battalion. Private Kingston saw his first major battle on this day. By nightfall, he was reported missing, confirmed as killed a few weeks later. He was only 17 years and 5 months old. Private Kingston died where he stood. His grave is known only unto God. During the war, Private Kingston spent 89 days in the trenches and was present for 2 battle honours. He received the British War Medal, Victory Medal and Memorial Plaque. Eric's father received a letter from one of his son's mates at the front. It reads, "Dear Mr. Kingston, you have, long ago I suppose, been officially notified of Eric's death, which occurred on the night before Good Friday at 9:30 p.m, somewhere on the Somme, by machine gun bullets, and was practically instantaneous. I may say that I was Eric's chum since we landed in England and came to France together. His chum that came from Kalgoorlie, McEwen, was killed 2 days after. Well, Mr. Kingston, if ever a lad was liked in any company, it was him. He was general favourite, and most of the fellows here were cut up the next day after the roll was called and it was known that he was killed. Good-natured to a fault, well-behaved, and of sunny disposition. I was not a bit surprised at his popularity amongst us. All the platoon, to a man, mentioned his name to me with regret, and wished me to convey their sympathy to you in your great trouble. Also from men in other companies in the battalion. Well, Mr. Kingston, Eric was a real good soldier, very smart and clean, and fearless. Was in the front rank when he met his death. I miss him awfully because we slept together and shared everything. He gave me your address one day, also his granddad's, but we all lost lots of things that night and the addresses were lost. Also his pocketbook, etc. we did not recover. Well, we have had a very rough time since it happened, and our losses have grown very heavy since then. Although the night Eric was killed was the hottest while it lasted, and I myself never expected to write about it. I may state here that since leaving Australia, he enjoyed perfect health, also growing and filling out bonza. Oh, I'm so sorry when I think of it. I begin to wonder if there is a God in heaven. Writing this letter is hard, as it brings it all back again, and though I'm older than Eric by 10 years, I thought the world of him. Two of Private Kingston's childhood friends put stories in the local 2J newspaper. Ruby Donegan of Kew wrote the following. He gave his life for his loved ones, for freedom was his joy. He died a 2J hero, though Eric was only a boy.
Thank you. Throughout the day, the names of 482 soldiers of the 44th Battalion who paid the supreme sacrifice will be read out. In this particular hour, 4 speakers will each read out 10 of the names. I now call the Honourable Minister Paul Papalia, CSE, MLA, Bob Hawke College, Dr. Peter Mack, and the Memorial Director to read the honour roll.
Private James Lawson, blacksmith from Perth, killed in action at the Battle of Messines, 9th of June 1917, aged 39. Private Joseph Lee, labourer from 2J, killed in action after the Battle of Albert, 26th of August 1918, aged 23. Private Thomas Robertson Leishman, farmer from Narrogin, killed in action at the Battle of Messines, 4th of June 1917, aged 22. Private Frederick Arthur Henry Lewis, horseman from East Perth, died of wounds after the breaching of the Hindenburg Line, 4th of October 1918, aged 19. Private Thomas Leyland, painter from East Victoria Park, killed in action at the Battle of Messines, 8th of June 1917, aged 38. Sergeant George Frederick Lymington, linesman from Geraldton, killed in action at the Battle of Grove-Sender Ridge, 4th of October 1917, aged 40. Private Samuel Limborn, farmhand from North Perth, died of wounds during the Battle of Messines, 1st of June 1917, aged 20. Private Alexander Lingwood, labourer from Coomberdale, killed in action at the Battle of Messines, 8th of June 1917, aged 22. Private Aubrey Cornelius Longbottom, farm manager from Grass Valley, killed in action at Armentières, 12th of January 1917, aged 35. Private Ronald David Longmuir, driver from Perth, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 28th of March 1918, aged 22.
Private Harry Ash Lovell, driver from Guildford, Died of illness at sea, 13th of July 1960, aged 36. Private Carl John Loss, labourer from Perth, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 24th of April 1918, aged 30. Private Charles Lumger, labourer from Catani, killed in action 4th of August 1917, aged 31. Private Daniel Lynch, Navy from Subiaco, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 28th of March 1918, aged 40. Private James Joseph Lynch, axeman from Brisbane, killed in action at Hamel, 4th of July 1918, aged 23.
Private Richard Lynch, labourer from Geraldton, killed in action at Amiens, 8th of August 1918, age 31. Private William Lynch, labourer from North Fremantle, killed in action at Villiers-Bretonne, 29th of May 1918, age 30. Private David George MacDonald, boilermaker from Boulder, killed in action at Messiaens, 10th of July 1917-1918. Private Donald Gilmore MacDonald, fireman from Boulder, killed in action at Messiaens, 16th of July 1917, age 31. And Private W. MacDonald, MM, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 7th of April 1918, age of.
Private James Wharton Mackenzie, grocer's assistant from Pinjarra, killed in action breaching the Hindenburg Line, 29th of September 1918, aged 18. Private William Andrew Mackenzie, timber worker from Pemberton, killed in action at Passchendaele, 18th of October 1917, aged 43. Private Dougal McLennan, painter from Perth, killed in action at Hummel, 4th of July 1918, aged 33. Corporal Tom Franklin Mansbridge, civil service clerk from Claremont, killed in action at Villiers-Bretonne, 3rd of June 1918, aged 39. Private Thomas William Marriott, clerk from Perth, killed in action at Armand-Pierre, 28th of January 1917, aged 35. Private Francis Jewel Marsh, clerk from Boulder, died of wounds in Australia, 25th of January 1921, aged 39. Private
thank you.
Hugh
sure?
T. Marshall,
Because if I eat, I'll get like all tired and I'll just be off.
died of illness near Lucastheatre Wood on the 2nd of April 1917, aged 19. Private James Martin, miner from Marble Lock, died of wounds at the Somme, 11th of April 1918, aged 33. Private George Edward Matheson, groom from Victoria, killed in action at Messines on the 4th of June 1917.
Private Edwin Harold Matthews, carpenter from Narrogin, killed in action at Armentières, 25th of January 1917, aged 40. Private Cecil George Matthews, railway employee from Northam, died of wounds at Hamel, 8th of July 1918, aged 29. Private Eric Alfred Matthews, clerk from Subiaco, died of wounds at Messines, 9th of June 1917, aged 21. Private Sinclair Bennett May, labourer from Albany, killed in action at Broodside Ridge, 4th of October 1917, age just 19. Private Oliver McAllister, hewer from Manjimup, killed in action at Cloakster, 2nd of April 1917, age 34. Sergeant William McAuliffe, miner from Bullfinch, killed in action at Warnerton, 31st of July 1917, age 38. Private Francis Douglas McCann, blacksmith from Perth, killed in action at Broodside Ridge, 4th of October 1917, age 20. Private Robert McCarley, miner from Westonia. William McCormack, hand from Perth, killed in action at Passchendaele, age 30. Private James McManus, farmhand from Kojna, killed in action at Warnerton, 30th of July 1917, age 24.
They were Australian soldiers who were experts in close combat. They were physically and mentally tough, compassionate and courageous. They led by example. They strove to take the initiative. They were committed to learning and working for their team. They believed in trust, loyalty and respect for their country, their mates and the army. The rising sun was their badge of honour. They are Australians, always. Thank you to all of those who have helped with reading the honour roll. I now call upon Bob Hawke College to read us the story of the Battle of Brucine Ridge.
The 44th had been badly battered in the assigned fighting of June to August 1917, and the battalion was now but a shadow of the lusty fighting force which had left Fremantle just a short year before. Many old faces were missing from the depleted ranks, but in their passing they had established glorious precedents which set a high standard for the new arrivals. Colonel Mountfridge, who had been with the battalion since its inception, was sent to England on staff duties. The men of the battalion felt a great sense of loss in this. Lieutenant Colonel Clark, a Tasmanian officer from the 40th Battalion, now took command of the 44th.
For the next 7 weeks, the battalion slowly built up its fighting strength, constantly conducting trainings and sporting exercises. German air raids were constant during the nights. Each bomber aircraft carried 5 big bombs. With all hands sound asleep in a tent comes the unmistakable buzz of the bomber. Boom, 1 boom, 2 nearer, boom, 3 still closer but half a mile away, boom, 4 seemingly in the next field, and boom, 5. A simultaneous and deep sigh of relief from everyone. A general turning over and wriggling and twisting, and the occupants settle once more in their interrupted slumber. The 44th was lucky not to be hit, whilst other units suffered extensive casualties from these bombers. During this 2-month period of recovery, only 1 man died.
On the 3rd of October 1917, the 44th Battalion, with a strength of 700 men, strong, fit, and full of fight and confidence, was sent to take part in the Battle of Brucine Ridge, part of the larger Battle of Passchendaele, a British offensive aimed at advancing around the Belgian city of Ypres. 1 million men would take part in the battle. The Australian attack was timed to take place at 6 a.m. on the 4th of October. However, the Germans also planned an attack. However, 10 minutes too late. Unknown to each other, 2 bodies of assault troops lying in some places only 20 metres between them, and both waiting for the dawn to fly at each other's throats.
While the Australian guns were practically silent, the Germans launched a barrage starting at 3 a.m., and for the next 3 hours the troops endured an ever-increasing storm of high-explosive shells, which literally showered on the area in which the diggers were crouching in shell holes with no possible cover, all while waiting for the arrival of the one, which must sooner or later fail in a particular shell hole. Casualties in the 44th were numerous. D Company lost 50% of its men in just that single artillery barrage. Another company suffered heavily. In addition, the usual Flanders drizzle drenched everyone to the skin. Although under such circumstances, the wedding was of minor importance, it was still another of those proverbial straws which, however, never broke the digger's back.
Suddenly, a flash of fire behind, and the thunderous deafening roar. In front, Dave noticed that the Australian guns were hitting back. Then, as the barrage went forward, the infantry, eager for action, followed it closely, and dead, wounded, and dazed, Germans met the view everywhere. The enemy attack was completely dislocated, and 5 minutes from the opening of the barrage, his attacking troops were either casualties or on their way back as prisoners of war. However, isolated concrete dugouts manned by staunch machine gunners held out, and each of these caused many casualties before they were wiped out. Within 4 hours of fighting, Bruce Bridge was fully taken. German casualties were enormous, with over 2,000 prisoners taken, roughly 10 prisoners every minute. Enemy artillery struggled to return fire, and German counterattacks proved useless. The 44th held position for another 2 days before being relieved. Then they moved a mile behind the lines to prepare for their next offensive, which was to take place in just a matter of days. The battalion suffered very high casualties, with almost 50 men killed and 200 wounded. The 4th of October 1917 was the deadliest single day for the battalion during the war.
There were many acts of gallantry. Lieutenant Matterford took command of a company after his major was killed. He led his company for the remainder of the battle and personally led at the front. He was awarded the Military Cross. The battalion transport officer, Lieutenant Hunt, personally went forward with his pack and transport, carrying ammunition and rations from the rear to support the line. Through heavy artillery, he received no award. Lieutenant Bremer repeatedly led his company in acts of bravery. He charged several Germans in the shell holes, shooting one and bayoneting another, causing the rest to surrender. He then worked to the rear of a German pillbox, destroying it with grenades and killing a senior German commander. He then captured 32 more prisoners. Additionally, he helped to destroy 4 German machine gun positions and personally searched dugouts for intelligence and maps, sending them back to headquarters. He was awarded the Military Cross.
Lieutenant Rogers was detailed to remain at headquarters, but instead went forward with some anti-aircraft guns and went over the trenches with the rest of his comrades. He was wounded in 13 places, yet remained on duty for 2 whole days. He assisted in evacuating all the casualties of his section, despite being bandaged from head to toe. He never reported himself as a casualty. He was awarded the Military Cross. Driver Graham volunteered to take hot meals forward with a pack of mules during the heavy bombardment. He declined to take a safe route, should the food would still be warm when he delivered it. His unwavering approach, wading through mud up to his thighs, leading his unwilling mules whilst under heavy fire, was a remarkable sight to the exhausted troops. He was awarded the Meritorious Service Medal.
Hope College will continue reading out the story of the Battle of Passchendaele.
4 days after the fighting at Bruce Bridge, the 44th, as part of the 11th Brigade, was ordered to assist the British Manchester Regiment in assaulting Passchendaele. The British suffered horrendous casualties as they were fighting with full packs, something the Australians did not do. It was bad enough moving light, but to be burdened with a pack made it impossible for any man to do a fighting man's job. The Australians moved up towards the firing line in a spread-out formation to avoid the enemy artillery. However, a German plane flew over and evidently wirelessed the information back to the gun, because soon after it seemed that every man on the western front was dropping its shells onto and in front of the 11th Brigade.
Darkness was now coming, and descending into the valley of death was an experience which no pen adequately described the horrors. The mud was knee-deep and bawed while the strewn around. Many men were killed and wounded, and the survivors exhausted and covered with mud. Organizing was became impossible due to the shell fire, and it stands as a monument to the digger that not one man turned back. The following morning, the artillery fire settled down, but a sniping battle took its place. The 44th suffered casualties, but ultimately proved better marksmen.
German and Australian stretcher bearers worked side by side to recover their wounded in a rare truce of the war. Wounded men had to be manhandled 7 kilometres to the nearest dressing station. By day and night, the runners and ration parties kept up much-needed supplies until after 3 days of manning the front line, the 44th was released and entered the reserve line, but still suffered from enemy action. It still rained, and the physical condition of the men was now very bad. The continuous soaking for days caused trench foot to become prevalent, and many good men became unable to walk and had legs so swollen they were trapped their natural size. Many more developed pneumonia. The Germans possibly held the Australians with mustard gas. One whiff would send the man to hospital for choking, spluttering wreck, and even sitting in the mud where Rice had burnt hours before resulted in tremendous blisters and burns all over the body. Dead bodies littered the entire battlefield, and in one shell hole there were 5 dead men, evidently still in various states. An English officer, a King's American rifleman, a New Zealander, a Highlander, and an Australian. Such a grave in itself left a grim mystery to the term World War, to the bugle calls had brought those willing fighters together from every corner of the empire, in life strangers, in death comrades united.
For the next 10 days, the battalion of the 11th Brigade shifted turns between being at the front line and the support line. It was hard to say which was the better position as both were so bad. It rained constantly for a fortnight. Dry clothing and boots were unknown. We were like wet sponges, and every step was handicapped by the kilos of mud which clung to them. Gas and high explosive shells rained down and surged for every nook and corner which it was possible for troops to occupy. 250 fresh Australian reinforcements joined the battalion midway through the battle, and their first experience of active service was an exceptionally hard one.
On the night of the 21st of October 1917, after almost 18 days of continuous fighting, the 44th was relieved by the Canadians, who themselves would have to fight at Passchendaele for the next 5 weeks. The battle had been a disaster. The Allies had gained some territory but at a huge cost, and now were vulnerable on the flank. All forces suffered over 800,000 killed and wounded in one of the deadliest battles of the war. The stretcher bearers worked intensely to rescue their comrades. To rescue even one man and bring him back to a dressing station was a 4-man job for 12 hours at a time. Private Cook was recognised by his mates as a superman. He constantly rescued men time and time again. His closest mates were killed. The casualty he was carrying on one occasion was killed, but Cook was resolute. He was the first into the battle and rescued many Englishmen as well. He worked day and night, and even once the battalion was due to leave, he volunteered to stay so that he could continue to rescue wounded Canadians. He was recommended for the Victoria Cross, but in the end received nothing, such as inconsistencies in the bestowal of decorations frequently made the blood of the biggest boil. Many others received decorations as well. In the total, fighting at Passchendaele had cost the battalion 90 men killed and hundreds wounded. It was to be their deadliest battle. All but one of the officers of the company were killed.
Thank you. The Plateau Down Bass will now play a piece. Thank you. We'll now lay the wreaths at the base of the memorial. Wreaths will be laid by the Honourable Mr. Dr. Peter Mack, the Memorial Director, and Bob Hawke College. Upon the conclusion of the laying of the official wreath, I invite anyone in the audience, if they have one, to also lay a wreath. Piper Darren Best will now lay the lament. Now ask that everyone please stand for the reciting of the oath and remain standing for the last toast, the 1 minute silence, the Ruth, the Australian Royal Anthem and the Australian National Anthem. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them, lest we forget. Thank you all. Please remain standing for the dismounting of the catapult. The dismounting of the catapult. Thank you. Please be seated. I now invite the Memorial Director to give the closing address. I also ask everyone to take part in the formal photo in front of the memorial at the conclusion of this specific ceremony.
That is the end of the ceremony. Thank you all for attending. To end this ceremony, I leave you with a quote by Captain Longmore regarding the 44th Battalion. While memory lives, however, the fighting 44th will never die. To be with them over there was a privilege and an honour, a glorious page in any man's life. And when the final evening comes to us all, and the last pipe has been smoked, it will be of the comrades who wore the blue and white oval patch that we'll be proudly thinking. Theirs was a tradition that Australia will do well to perpetuate, whilst there's a growing generation of free men and free women left to be inspired by it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are those free men and women. Please join me